Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Nova Holistic episode 24 today. My name is Dijana and I'm the host of this podcast. And today I will bring you a conversation like no other. I cannot wait. I'm so excited to introduce my guest today. So let me invite her in and welcome my beautiful guest, Jenny Fitzgerald. Hello, hello.
Hi, Deanna. How are you?
I'm so good. Welcome to Nova. I'm so excited to speak with you today. We had our little pre-live chat, and there's just this beautiful energy bubbling up to the surface. I can't wait to have this chat with you today.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
good.
lovely to be
Excellent.
here.
Yeah. So, just for the audience, a little bit of an intro for the audience. You and I had initially met through an organization that we are both part of, the International Energy Healers Association. And so we're not in the same, I'm in Sydney and you're in Brisbane, right?
That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
beautiful
So we're
Brisbane.
both in Australia. Yes, beautiful Brisbane. So, for the international audience, Sydney and Brisbane are in the same country, obviously, but we're in two different states. So, we hadn't actually ever met in person, but we have spoken a couple of times online and then decided to have this wonderful conversation together when I invited you to be a part of the podcast today.
Yes.
Yes. So, in the spirit of this podcast, I usually start the conversation by asking my guest, in this case you, how did you get to be the Jenny Fitzgerald that you are today? Tell us a little bit about your life and a little bit of your emotional trajectory. I'm really interested in how you got to be you, your soul, your spirit. So tell us a little bit about that and then we'll unpack.
Okay. So I was born into a quite a large family. So I'm the sixth of eight children, and I grew
Wow.
up in Kingscliff, which is northern New South Wales, where we went to the beach every day, and you know really had a wonderful life, except for the fact that my dad was abusive and had a drinking problem, and money was very, very short. And then, I mean, I grew up, uh, and I'd like to share some things that happened to me along the way that really impacted me and kind of changed my life. So,
Hmm.
one of the things that's just popped in my head is that I fell pregnant when I was 16 and I was
Right.
coerced into having an abortion. Now,
Oh,
uh, I didn't realize the impact that had. I kind of went along with my mum, who had 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 fallen pregnant herself at the same age, had been forced to get married. That baby then died when she was 14 months old. And so for me to fall pregnant, my mum, it brought up all her pain, I guess. And so she didn't want me to go through that herself. But I didn't realize that at the time. Um,
wow.
I, I started binge drinking not long after that to cope, I
Hmm.
guess, and also didn't realize that's what I was doing until much later in life. I was very
Hmm.
lucky to um, find my partner for life when I was very young. So I met my husband of 44 years when I was seven. Oh, well, I went to school with him, but we started going out together when I was about 17. And he's,
Wow.
he's my rock. So um, we got married, had two kids, moved to Townsville, which is in North Queensland, and everything was fine. We built ourselves a little house. We built a house. And not long after we moved in there, some things happened. Like my gran died. The interest rates went to 17.5%. I didn't have any support because I'd moved away from home with the two children. I was exhausted. I was a smoker back then. Not good
Right.
for. But I was interested in health, but not enough to give up smoking and all of that stuff. And I found myself one day, one day I was okay, and the next day I had obsessive compulsive disorder. So
Right.
it started out with me thinking that I might choke on something or that I had something stuck in my throat. And no matter what,
Right.
I had barium swallows and x-rays and all sorts of things on my throat. There was nothing there, but you couldn't convince me of that. And so I went
Wow.
through a process of getting sicker and sicker and sicker. I didn't think to mention to the doctor that I had all these crazy thoughts going on in my head. Not ever did I do the vacuuming too much or check the windows or iron incessantly. I didn't do any of the physical things that people attribute to obsessive compulsive disorder, but I had a terror attack going on in my mind 24/7. So yeah, I
Wow.
lost a lot of weight. And this lasted for about 10 years until one day I actually was standing at the kitchen sink and I thought, I could kill my children. This is awful. I can't be left alone. And it was as if I couldn't trust my own mind. I couldn't trust myself. So I went and got some help. And the doctor sent me off to a psychiatrist who said, you have obsessive compulsive disorder and you will be on antidepressants for the rest of your life. Best thing that ever could have happened to me, I think, because that was like having shock treatment because I didn't believe in drugs at all. And I knew that wasn't the answer. So I went and got myself some real help. Somebody, as happens, the energy of life brings you what you need. And I needed that, those years of being shaken up to go into the depths of myself where I was depressed. I couldn't feel love anymore for anything. My children, my husband. I didn't kill anybody. I was terrified that I might though. And so I went and joined a group and I had a wonderful counsellor who supported me through that. And then one day she said, oh, there's this fellow coming from the States and he's running this workshop. I think it'd be a good idea. And luckily I worked with 3 or 4 people who were also going to the same counsellor because we were all nuts. And we all went, 4 of us, I think, or 5, who did this workshop over 3 days. And it was during that workshop that I learned about what it meant to go deeply within myself. It wasn't a spiritual workshop. He was a coach or a counsellor or a psychologist, I'm not sure what. But at the end of that workshop, I had 36 hours of no anxiety at all. That was a miracle to me.
That's profound.
And so I knew I was onto something. And so I took what I learned from that workshop. You know, you go to workshops, you forget about what you learn after a couple of days and you just shelve it and then you go to the next workshop. I use my hands a lot.
Oh, no, I get it. Yep.
So that process that I learned in that workshop became my life. It was, so the people I worked with, I don't know what they thought, but we would meet every Thursday for lunch and process ourselves and each other. And we would, because I went with the counsellor that I was seeing, we processed in the same way during the meetings that we had, our group sessions. And after about 6 months, because I used this process day and night, every time I was triggered, I would implement this process. I would grab little sheets of paper and write my process down until I got to the point where I could process the people in the group better than the counsellor could. So that was pretty amazing. So I could see where they needed to go. And I thought, maybe I should do something with this. I mean, at the time I was working in libraries, public libraries. So I decided, and I'd studied Reiki and been to quite a few workshops on healing, and I joined the National Federation of Healers. And I decided that it was time I finished my job and started doing this. And so I started running a little group on a Friday morning. That lasted for like 10 years. And I'd have
Wow.
anxiety that would come to me. They'd be drawn to me. And I just helped them with, what worked for me. And so then I decided I should maybe go and get some qualifications. And so I became a life coach. And because I feel that we need to be moving forward rather than just staying in our problems, because I knew that wasn't what worked for me. And so over time, I worked out that this process was a process of forgiveness. Not only of forgiving other people, but forgiving myself. And it was about compassion and understanding. And so it's still, I don't have to process quite as much as I used to, but if I get triggered, I know what to do with that. And so I help people. And now I help people with stress and overwhelm, because that's where people are at now. Is that?
Yeah. Okay, so as you can tell, I'm wanting to just ask or unpack a little bit more about some of the things that you've said. The first thing that really that really spoke to me was this idea that going deeper within you is a process. Can you, So, because, someone that hasn't done any personal development or journeyed within or contemplated their navel or done any meditation or anything like that is going to go, well, I don't know what am I looking for?
Yeah.
Like, what is it, right? And so I'm wondering whether you can speak to this, what you describe, that going within has been a process for you. There's a set of, I'm presuming, a set of things that you do. Maybe, I mean, I'm not asking you to disclose your, trade secrets or anything like that, but just
No. Yeah.
speak to like that. What is that? What is the process?
Okay, so the first thing that you have to have is something that triggers you. You have, and we all have stuff that pushes our buttons. And I believe truly deeply that being triggered is a minute part of what's going on. It's a symptom. It's a calling by our soul to go and find out what's really going on. Because if I'm triggered, let me think of something that, and I'll use my husband because he doesn't mind. He's such an amazing person. So he used to be triggered if we were cooking dinner together and he'd maybe be cutting up the carrots. And I'd say, oh, I don't want you to cut them up that way. I want you to cut them up a different way. And he'd just get really triggered and lose it and go, well, do it yourself. Now, that happens to a lot of people. We all get triggered, and when we're triggered, we don't know what we know, basically. And it happens in a nanosecond, and it can be the way someone looks. It can be a situation. It can be something you read. It can be something you see on TV. Doesn't matter where it comes from. And the key to the process is being able to identify the feeling in the body the instant you get triggered, or being able to go back to that feeling in the body. So when I say doing a process, a deep process, it's about going into the body, because I learned that my mind, my brain, is nuts. It told me so many lies when I had OCD that I don't trust it at all. So I don't kind of look at my mind and go, oh, all those things that I'm thinking are the absolute truth. I go, oh, all those things that I'm thinking could be, anything, but my body can't lie. My body will
Okay.
tell me the truth no matter what. So if I eat the wrong thing, it will tell me. If I eat too much, I'll put on weight. My body's always in real time, and it always is giving me feedback that's truth. It'll tell me the exact thing that I need. So if I look at the sensation that I get instantly that I'm triggered, then I will be able to discern what's going on. I'll be able to connect with it and feel into it. And it will, if I let it, if I pay enough attention, it will give me answers. And so drop in. And so Harry managed to drop in one day after a lot of throwing his hands in the air. And he really got this. And I always ask, what does that mean about you? What meaning have you given that thing that's happened, or that sensation? What's going on in there? And you can usually come up with a belief that's been stored way back. And for him, it was, I'm not good enough. What I do is never okay. And so that was, that belief was deciding for him how he should operate in the world. He should just throw his hands in the air and give up. And that's what we do.
So, sorry, Jenny, can I just interrupt just for 1 second? Just to summarize this for the audience, I understand what you're talking about, but what I'm hearing you say is that it's not about the carrots and it's not about the cutting. It's about, if you tell me that I'm not doing it the right way or to do it a different way, it actually equals that I'm not good enough. Somewhere inside of me, it means I'm not good enough.
I've
Your
made
words
up this
mean,
meaning.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
The meaning
So
that I
that's
give
the
it is,
connection. Yeah.
yeah. And
That's
so,
the meaning I give it unconsciously. Yeah.
yeah. And so for me, it's not enough to stop there. It's not enough to just understand that. So for me, it's about really listening and connecting with that in the body, because there's always a sensation in the body when you come to something like that. And so being able to drop into that sensation and ask it, what do you need to be okay? And the body will give you the answer, always, if you listen deeply enough. And
I'm just writing this down.
yeah,
Yeah.
and for my husband, it was, who I am is perfectly okay, because what you're doing is connecting with what I call the divine within. And it's an expansive sensation in the body that speaks to who you really are. And so what I discovered happens when you go that deep and you find the truth with a capital T. So I'm not good enough isn't the truth. It's what we made up to make sense of the world when we were very little. The truth is, the 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 root of who we are when we're born. I've got an 18-month-old granddaughter. She knows she's the center of the universe. She knows she's divine. She knows she's important. She tells you what she wants. And I think that is taken away from us as we grow and fit into society. And so this idea of coming back to who we are, who we really are, and really dropping into that, finding the truth, then we're free. And what I found was that if we can go deep enough into that, the things that trigger us change. You can tell if you process something deeply enough because those things are no longer drawn to you to help you grow. So
Yeah.
we want these experiences because we need to heal. We have wounds that
Yeah.
need those experiences, those triggers. And I think that they're really important. And I truly believe that the person we marry or in deep relationship with are our gifts from God. And I don't know if you want to use that, I call God all sorts of things, but the energy of life wants us to grow and brings us our partners so that we can really grow and learn and be able to love more deeply. And so in that process, you find out that no one has done anything to you. No one. And that's a big thing. I mean, I've worked with people who've been sexually abused, who've had their children sexually abused by the same person, and they've found forgiveness through this work. It is very powerful. I mean, they come in and they might say that I will never forgive that person, and they end
Yeah.
up, 12 months later, 18 months later, going, that is bizarre. I will make that person accountable now without the hurt and the pain. So this isn't about forgiveness. Is never about not being accountable or causing to be people to be accountable, but it is about knowing that no one can do anything to you.
We're going to unpack forgiveness in a minute, but before we do that, I have this really strong urge to highlight something that you've been talking about that I think is so very important in today's society, right? I have observed on social media the way people talk, especially, I actually see this a lot in my son's generation. So he's about to turn 18. So, the late teens, early adults, they seem to, there's this societal or social media conditioning that says that triggered equals toxic. And I want to debunk that. I think it's really
Sorry, I
important
shouldn't.
to understand. I know, but to understand that, look, let's face it, yours and my generation, right, weren't even allowed to have triggers.
No.
So let's start from there, right? These days, it's different, right? People acknowledge their emotional body and they acknowledge being triggered, but there seems to be this pressure to act and put on your best all the time and completely disown parts of ourselves that are actually trying to heal, that are trying to, like, hello, I'm here, I need some help. And we're trying to put on this mask that everything is dandy and everyone's just perfect on social media and everything is like unicorns and love and light and whatever other rubbish, right?
Yep.
And
And
shadow work,
that's toxic.
that is toxic.
Because
The
that
depression
takes
or
away
suppression is toxic. Yeah.
yeah, it takes away our humanity. Our humanity. We
Yes.
are emotional thinking beings. And so if we're thinking, let's start from if we're in a low mood, if we have a low mood, we wake up, we haven't had a good night's sleep. I mean, if you've got children, you've had the kids awake half the night, they're sick or whatever, you will be in a low mood and you will come from that place. things will push your buttons. You will say things you don't mean. It's not who you really are. I mean, I still get triggered. I'm alive. Stuff happens. Like shit happens.
What, you mean to tell me you're not perfect, Miss Jenny
No,
Fitzgerald?
yes. No, I don't. No, I want to be human. And I
Yes,
want to be
that
able
too.
to
Yeah.
understand that if someone is having a bad day, I can be with them, not to jump into the quicksand with them, but to
Yeah.
be with them and give them a rope to help them out. And that means not shaming, not annihilating,
Yeah.
not
No.
not doing all those awful things that people do when and that what you were talking about is what I call self-righteousness. It's where I know how people are supposed to be, and I know that you shouldn't be the way you are. It's really sad. We have
Yeah.
we have a need to be seen in our society. And when I can sit with someone and see them and be with them and allow them to speak and work through stuff and get past their own, crazy thinking, then that's a gift that I give them. In my work, sometimes I will see couples who come here and they just want to kill each other. They're yelling, and it happened to me the other day, yelling and screaming at each other and saying really nasty things. And allowing them to speak and just saying, yeah, you look angry. You look upset. You look like you're having a hard time. Even just saying that, being with someone and acknowledging where they're at, and then helping them see that this isn't who you really are. There's love in there. Even this morning, I had a young man. He just is going through some stuff. He was in a really bad place, and I said to him, "Just feel how you feel about that." And then I said, "Okay, jiggle around, and now think about something really beautiful." And he did that, and his energy changed. And he was like, "Oh." I said, "Well, who's in charge of how you feel? Who's in charge of your emotional state?" "You are." And then we were able to do the deeper work to connect him to his strength and his power. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So,
I really love that in your conversation to me, I'm observing this really beautiful thing that I recognize, which is that that you speak equally about the thoughts and about the feelings as you do about the energy of somebody. So that tells me that you work in this really superb, holistic way, and all of the person is considered, not just their mind. It's not just, cognitive and behavioral stuff. It's everything, all of the person. Being present with someone means being with them completely, not just their brain and their thoughts, not
or,
just parts of them,
and
all of them.
not just their nice selves,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
all be nice. But when
Mm.
I know for myself that in my relationship with my husband, that when we learned that um, when I'm in a bad mood or he's in a bad mood, that we both don't have to go there for starters. One of us can stay in our true self, our compassionate, kind, loving self, and be with the other person to help them through their stuff. And
Mm.
And I know that we both, if something happens, I'll say to Harry, "Oh, you look triggered." And I don't say it in a way that's confrontational. It's not, "Oh, you're triggered." It's, "You look triggered and I'm concerned. I have compassion and concern." And he does the same thing for me. And that's
Mm.
lovely. it creates a lot of intimacy in our relationship. And I think everybody
Okay.
should
Any
do that.
young people, Jenny, sorry, let me just say this. Any young people watching this is how you have a relationship, an effective, intimate, deeply meaningful relationship in the world, just for those that are new to this.
Yeah,
So
and
thank you
our
for sharing that,
relationship's
Jenny.
over 44 years old. We've been married over 44
Mm,
years. And it's gotten better
mm,
with time, not worse.
yeah.
A lot of people who just exist together or they get divorced or they have to leave because they
Mm,
don't understand
mm,
this stuff, which is
mm,
really sad
yeah.
because it's
Oh,
not
look,
obvious.
it was the same for me. I'm divorced. We couldn't get past some things in our marriage, and one of them was loss of a child. The grief
Mm,
was just
yeah.
unbearable. Just we could just never find a way to heal together, you know, in order to then do that thing you were talking about where one of us could hold space for the other and help each other out to get past those moments that were difficult.
Mm, yeah. And I can't
Mm.
imagine what that would be like. I
Oh,
cannot imagine what that would be like.
yeah,
So, yeah, my heart does go
yeah.
out to you for that. Yeah.
Well,
And for the loss of the
yeah.
child and the loss of your marriage because of it.
Mm.
Yeah, that's challenging.
Yeah, it was. But lessons learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
And
is
it,
why I can now recognize um, when you talk about the way you and Harry can be present with each other, how beautiful that is.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it does take work. I think,
yeah,
um, and I don't know if it's this generation or if it's just the way we are. It is really hard to be in relationship with somebody else for a long period of time. It does take a lot of understanding and compassion and kindness. Was talking to a young couple the other day, and they were saying some pretty awful things to each other. And I said to them, I don't know if you realize this, but when we're in relationship at this intimate level, we should treat the other person with more respect, more dignity, and more understanding than we do anybody else on the planet. If you want to speak really badly to someone, go and find someone out there. Don't do it in your home. If you don't have something nice
mm,
to say to your partner, shut your mouth, zip it, because it's not appropriate to put, and I'm going to use the word shit, on your
mm,
partner. It is not
yeah,
okay. So,
yeah,
and it is, and then it's about self respect as well from that perspective.
yeah,
When you have self-respect, and that's where we need to be working first and foremost, is on ourselves,
yes,
not
yeah,
trying to get them to behave in a way that suits us. We want to work on
hmm,
ourselves so we can love the person we're with. Just love them for who
yeah,
they are. Don't want you to
yeah,
be different. And sometimes you have to come to terms with that, with who they really are,
yeah,
if you want to stay
yeah,
with them. I've
yeah.
had to come to
Well,
terms with
it sort of, it comes back to what you were saying in the beginning about um, the process being. So I'm triggered. So I have to do the inner work in order to take responsibility for my bit in this, in
yeah,
whatever the situation is,
yes.
which then, builds that sense of self-respect and self-awareness and, you know, and then moving on to things, like kindness and compassion, and then eventually the big F word,
Yes.
forgiveness.
Because if you don't know yourself, no, I'll put it
Mm,
in a different way. Once you know yourself, once you know who you are, and that you are both light and dark, you are
mm,
not one or the other. Once you
mhm,
understand that, then you can see that in other people. and you can accept
Yes.
it in other people. And I
Mm.
believe
Yeah.
this self-love thing that everybody's talking about. When I first started this journey, I had no idea what self-love was. And then I
Yeah.
realized it's self-acceptance. It's
Mm-hmm.
when I can accept myself, then I can accept you. I can accept other people. I can accept the way things are. And if
Mm.
I don't like the way things are in my acceptance, then I can set about to change things. But without the
Mm.
acceptance, can't do anything. I will do it in a
No.
dysfunctional way. I'll be dysfunctional.
Yeah. And usually, if there's no acceptance, there's projection, because if you can't accept it about yourself, you will then see it in someone else and then project your own crap onto somebody else. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you then want them to change so you feel better. It's just awful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can certainly create some funky karmic cycles with that little nugget.
And you go round and round and round and round in circles forever doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So, Jenny, I want to talk some more about forgiveness. In my experience, forgiveness is greatly underrated. People don't quite understand what forgiveness is, what it's about, and how there's various components, even a process, if you will, in the in forgiveness.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'd love it if you could tell me or tell us why you, it seems to me that you are called to be in service in a way that speaks about forgiveness a lot, right? So not all of us are meant to do the same thing. And for me, you are all about this divine attribute of forgiveness. And so tell me about that. Tell me about how your heart just has this way of transmitting forgiveness out into the world, and how that came about for you.
Okay. So first of all, I have no clue. I just know.
Yeah, right,
It's just been the way life has led me, I guess. And so
right.
I realized the process that I did, or that I learned and that I became my life, um, was about forgiveness. One day
Mhm,
when I used to work with a naturopath and in the same office, and one day I used to rent a room a couple of days a week to see
mhm,
clients. And one day I went into this room and I opened the drawer of the desk, which I very rarely did, and here was this little book. It was about um, Catholicism. And I just
mhm,
opened it up. And here was this step by step explanation of what do they do on a Saturday night? They go to church or they go to the confession. It was a step by
mhm.
step process of confession. And it seriously followed pretty much the steps of that process. And I thought, confession is about forgiveness. And I thought,
Mm,
oh, it's a forgiveness process. It's where you
mm,
understand that nothing was done to you. For me, that's where forgiveness goes. That you
yeah.
have to get to that. There are two words that come to mind. Understanding. First of all, you have to understand how someone could have done what they did,
Mm.
and then have compassion. Okay, so it's hard to see why someone would do some of the things that they do, but we all do what makes sense to us in any moment. All of us do that. That's
Mm.
it. That's just how we operate in the world. We do what makes sense. And so if committing murder makes sense to me in the moment, then that's what I will do. Sad as that is. So what I always ask, for someone to do the most horrendous things, cause harm to a child, abuse, all those things, what are the things that would have to go on in that person's mind to be able to do that? What horrible life must they be living to be able to do that? And sometimes I think there, but for the grace of God go I. Because who knows, given different circumstances in life, that I might not be the same.
Yeah.
And so understanding that
Compassion.
humanity then gives you that ability to have compassion. And unless you know deeply in yourself that you are human and you are capable of anything, good and evil, bad, good, bad. I mean, I like the word evil because if you spell it backwards, it means you live and you're living your life. That's all that means for me. So when you have that, when you understand and have compassion, then you've forgiven them. But the most important person that you have to have understanding and compassion for is you. I looked at my 16-year-old self who fell pregnant and had an abortion. I had to go, I understand that in that moment, because that to me now is murder. I killed my baby. I allowed that to happen. Where was I in that? I had no agency. I had no self-respect. I had no voice. So I now have that compassion and that understanding for myself. And I know that that was the only thing I could do at the time with the understanding that I had. And so what would being angry or embarrassed or ashamed of that, what good would that be doing me now? None. And so when you can understand and have compassion and have forgiveness, you can let go. You can let go. You can let go. And it's beautiful. It is really lovely. So you have that for yourself. Look at your life and see the things, the decisions that you've made over the course of your life, and see if you can have understanding and compassion, because I believe we all do the very best that we can with what we've got in the moment. The very best. And if we know better, we do better. When we know better. And the deeper I've managed to go within myself, the more I get, the more life gives me, not materially, but my internal life, the more joy I have, the more I let go of, the better life is in my head.
And your body.
That's the most important thing. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Important thing. So how did I get on this journey of forgiveness? It was a purely selfish beginning because I wanted to feel better. I wanted to be better because my mind was, like I said before, it was in a nutcase. I was mentally ill. I wanted to feel better. And this is where the journey of life has led me. And I will say led because I don't believe I've played too much of a part in it, except, I don't know if you've read the book The Alchemist. In there, the line I love.
Oh my God. Yeah.
The sheep know where to find the grass is the line that really speaks to me in that book. And I just know how to follow the next thing that's put in front of me. I don't know where that came from. I've always had it. I trust. If I have a thought, I do it. If I don't have a feeling to do something, I get a pull. I get pulled towards it.
Mm, yeah.
So does
Yeah.
that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm just thinking about that pull. I mean, I often refer to that as that internal sort of guidance system, you know,
Yep.
people call it intuition or whatever gut feeling, whatever internal guidance system. It's like that because we know there is a knowing that happens that can is difficult to describe, but it exists and lives inside of us, definitely 100%, because
And
we are
there's
spiritual beings, period. Yeah.
and there is a way to know whether it's the pull or whether it's the ego. Really
Mm.
simple. When it comes
Mhm.
without emotion, you know that it's the pull, the divine pull. Emotion,
I I will
what's
challenge you in that. I
good?
don't think that that's the case, actually. The way that I describe it, Jenny, if you don't mind, is if it just comes from the head, the ego will have something to do with it. So you have to be really careful to discern it. If it comes from your body, then it comes from that internal GPS guidance system. And the emotional body is also part of the physical body because it's deeper and it's heart centered. So that's why I'm really careful about making the emotional body the bad guy in something like this.
Oh no, 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 don't mean well. So for me, because I've had an anxiety disorder, um,
Yeah.
and for me, excitement and anxiety are exactly the same thing. Um, if I have a thought and I get excited about it or get a bit fearful about it, then it's not my
Mhm.
intuition. It's. But if I just get a pull and there's kind of like a knowing. It feels like a bit of a buzz, actually, but there's no emotion, there's no excitement, there's no fear. It just is. That's what I mean.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Right.
just
Yeah.
it's
So
pure.
it's
It's
neutral.
pure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and so
Yeah.
I will say what I need to, or I'll go. You know, you drive. I drive down the road, and I think, oh, I'm going to go that way, and all of a sudden it's like, we'll go that way. And so I'll follow
Mm,
that instead of that because that's something I've decided, and this is something that pulls me.
mm, mm.
And I
So
don't know what
I
the
guess yeah,
difference
I
between
guess the
that is, but
yeah, the wisdom in this particular interaction that we've just had is that that internal GPS guidance system or the pull or whatever we call it, we can call it whatever most resonates for us. And B, you need to be able to find your own, however it works for you. So there is not one right way.
yeah,
That's the point, I
and
think.
being
Yeah.
honoring your own desires,
Mm,
honoring.
mm.
So
And so what I want to move the conversation now. By the way, thank you. Deeply grateful for sharing your wisdom around forgiveness because it is it's such a, again, it's such an underrated. I think people just don't realize that a huge part of the letting go process, which then gives you the room in your life to write a new chapter, to do something differently, to make room to have a new experience or a new love or a new child or a new job or whatever, right?
yeah,
Um, that letting that forgiveness plays such a crucial role in the unfoldment of your life, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So I thank you so much for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it. And so then I want to then move this conversation in, because we're coming to sort of closing of the episode, because we're already at 15 minutes. Can you believe it? That just felt like 5 minutes to me. So working with your clients, I encourage everybody to go and check out your website, which I'm going to copy and paste it in a moment, the website link. Actually, it's in the notes already. What am I saying? But when you open your landing page, there's this beautiful title on your page that says Transform Your Life, I think. And it is such a wonderful invitation for people to come and work with you in order to transform their lives, obviously. Tell us a little bit more about your work and how it all goes.
Okay. Oh, I don't know where to start. So usually I invite people to come and have a discovery session with me, so that they can get a sense of me and I can get a sense of them and whether I can actually do anything to help them. That's because I don't want to waste people's time. So we talk about how I might be of service and what's really going on in their lives. So usually if somebody comes to me, either virtually or in person, it's because I believe they've been drawn to me by the energy of life, first of all. Because again, the sheep know where to find the grass. We know where to find what we need. And so the work I do with people is not for the faint-hearted. You will be required to drop deeply into yourself, but I guide people in that. It's not that you're able to do it before you start. I've had people who haven't even been able to feel their shirt on their skin. They've been so disconnected that, and to be able to get them to really feel into themselves and to trust themselves. I guess that's one of the big things for me is forgiveness and that the ability to trust yourself, because I spent many years not being able to trust myself. So yeah,
Right.
we will work in whatever way I feel into at the time, basically. I know that sounds very wishy-washy and airy-fairy, but people who've worked with me know that when they show up, I show up too. And so we come from a place where I'm curious and they're open. And if they're not open already, they will be opened to themselves. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's as much a spiritual journey. For me, it's spiritual because spirituality is about the path into the self and the divine self. So
Yes.
you will find yourself. You will find that part of you that you're yearning for. Because that's what you find your joy. That's what I'm about too. It's like I want people to feel this joy. I want them to be able to be the very best that they are. So what else do you need to know? there'll be a lot of internal work. A lot of internal work.
Yeah. And so I have a question about the discovery session. People can book the discovery session with you on your website?
Yeah. You just click. There's a little button on the just down the bottom of halfway down the page. You click on that, and it'll send me an email, and we'll organise a time. You don't go to a calendar to book. I honestly haven't figured out how to do that. I'd love to. Everybody knows. But yeah, there's a button there, I'll get back to people. I email back and get phone numbers, and then we can have a chat. Yeah, and we do that.
To be honest,
on Zoom or FaceTime or Skype. I still have Skype, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Zoom and FaceTime.
I was just going to sort of validate what you were saying about, being more proactive about connecting with the person or the potential client. I prefer to do that as well. I've actually considered doing the whole calendar thing, but I just think that it's sort of that the again going back to process, it's the process of interaction is, I believe, important with work like this. It
Mm,
can't just be exchanging calendars and doing tech stuff. Like for me, it's so important to get a feel for how somebody operates from beginning to end.
yeah, absolutely.
Right. So that
Yeah.
interaction, even something as simple as, emailing each other, will give me an insight about how they communicate, you know, th- how they present in the world, whether they maybe feel a little bit of anxiety at
Oh,
the idea of connecting, like all of those
I
things.
think everybody, I haven't met anyone who hasn't been a little bit anxious the first time they have a conversation with someone like me. That is
Yeah.
perfectly normal because you
Yeah.
don't know what you're going to get.
That's right.
It
Yeah.
is. And I do my best to help people to feel at ease as quickly as
Yes.
possible because,
Mm.
and that comes from really listening and hearing what the other person has to say and
Yeah.
knowing that,
Yeah.
well, I pretty much heard everything. So it's hard to shock me these days. I have worked with people who've done some pretty horrendous things in their lives and have a lot of shame. And I've worked with people
Mm,
who've done really amazing, beautiful things in their lives and have shame around that. It's
mm.
yeah. I see my work as being my job in our interaction as being to help people to create a safe space so someone can be
Yes,
themselves. A little
yes.
container where you
Mm.
find joy and peace. Yeah.
And I'm sure that this happens for you as well. Often people, being just who they are with me is often for the first time ever for them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because they've been wearing a mask in one way or another for so long.
Yes, and you've just
Yeah.
reminded me that this man's dead now, but I had a client quite about 10 or 15 years ago. He was 82 years old when I met him, and we did
Mm.
some work together. He came to me because he had some health issues, and we did some Reiki and stuff like that. And he felt so safe that he opened up to me and told me that he'd been sexually abused when he was 12 years old. He'd had three wives and he'd never told anybody else that this had happened to him.
Wow.
And
Oh
so
my
I
goodness.
figure that I do create a bit of a safe space for people.
Yeah.
That no
Yeah.
matter what people have been through, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh goodness, just I mean, I just want to say, thank you for being you in the world because we need so much of this, um, because this evolutionary transition that Mother Gaia and everybody on it is going through right now is that we are purging some deeply ingrained, darkness, density,
Mm.
some really funky shit, let's face it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wants to get out.
It so wants to get out. It,
It wants us. It wants to get out, and it wants us to play in the world and bring our best
mm,
selves to it so we can
yeah.
impact the people around us. Because
Yes.
when
Yeah.
one of us shines our light, everybody gets to see. Ooh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I know. Goosebumps.
Yeah, I know.
Um, lovely. Okay, so let me just say you were mentioning The Alchemist before. So in the comments, I've posted The Alchemist is the book, and Paulo Coelho is the author. So if anybody wants to go and find it and read it, highly recommended. Amazing, amazing author. I've read, I think, most of his books. There's
Yeah.
quite a few of them. So
And it's a
I
simple little
know it
book.
well.
It's a simple
Yeah,
little
it's not too
with
wordy.
profound truths.
Yes, it's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in closing, my dear Jenny, is there anything you want to say in closing before we finish?
Hmm. Yeah. I would remind people, remind your listeners that within them is everything that they need, and that they're living their lives from within, not from the outside. Yeah, be present to that.
Yeah, I just feel such gratitude and for those words. Thank you. Thank you.
Namaste.
I literally haven't nothing further to say and want to finish on that divine note and that divine wisdom. So, um, thank you everyone for watching. Jenny, don't go anywhere. I'm just going to close this podcast episode with a beautiful visual image that's infused with divine code divine light, or codes of light. So feel free to receive, and I hope you've got something out of this conversation. Thank you so much. All the best to everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.